You ready?
Yes.
All right. So, Dr. Cortney Warren is a board clinical psychologist, associate professor of psychology at UNLV. Go Rebs. She's won numerous professional awards, and she's an expert on addictions, eating pathology, self-deception, and the practice of psychotherapy from a cross-cultural perspective. She earned her doctorate at Texas A&M. Go Aggies.
You got them all.
And she's also been trained at a pretty good school called Harvard, through the Harvard Medical School at McLean Hospital. Please welcome Dr. Cortney Warren.
Thank you.
Really quickly, letting go of your ex, CBT skills to heal the pain of a breakup and overcome love addiction. It's already received a lot of positive reviews from publications like the Washington Post, Psychology Today, and even an international German website of some sort.
Really?
So it means you're huge in Germany.
Amazing.
And you've gone global. I just had one question, and then I'll let you go to your talk. It's like,
Please.
this is your work, but why did you decide to write a book, and how did it come about?
Oh, why did I write this book? Well, I have to start by saying that I had really no intention of writing a book on breakups and love addiction. I took my first academic job at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. And as you might imagine, Las Vegas is associated with a whole host of addictive behavior and other psychopathology that gets people in a lot of trouble, which was a great place for me to be and a great place for me to do research. But while I was there, a bunch of my students asked me to give a TEDx talk. And I gave the talk on the psychology of self-deception, how we lie to ourselves, why it's a problem, and how it hurts you. And in that talk, I needed a clinical example. I needed an example of how we lie to ourselves because self-deception is very amorphous. It's a very sort of conceptual idea. I lie to myself? How do I lie to myself? Well, you can't tell me because you are lying to yourself about what you're lying to yourself about. So I used myself in romantic relationships as an example. How I lied to myself when I fell in love for the first time, how my relationship fell apart, how I hurt myself and my partner in that process. And after the talk was released, even though it was on honesty, I was flooded with questions about romantic relationships and breakups and addictive behavior, and how can you have a successful romantic relationship after you've fallen in love. So that is actually the culmination of how this book came to be. And as I was thinking about you today and coming here and talking about this book, I was reflecting on the fact that it was Valentine's Day last week, which many of you experienced. Maybe some of you experienced in a happy way, some of you maybe not. It's a really tough time for people who are struggling in their romantic relationships and going through breakups. And I got a call from a reporter, and she was doing a story on breakups, and she said, "So, Dr. Warren, there's this zoo that's right by my house, and they're running this promotion where you can name a cockroach after your ex." Okay, and then she said, and even more, you can actually pay extra and have them film your cockroach ex being eaten by another animal. Is this good for our mental health? Is this something that will help you as you're going through a breakup?
Yes.
And as I tried to process the question and understand, okay, what do I really think about this? How can I impact this? What really occurred to me is breakups can be so difficult. They are so heart-wrenching and painful that sometimes you really want to just think of your ex as a cockroach and watch a lizard eat it, because it's so hard to harness the actual experience of it, the need to let go of your ex, the need to let go of the dream that once was a relationship that is no longer, the desire to believe that there's somebody who they aren't, or that you are somebody who you aren't. And so my end conclusion here is that actually you want to be as honest with yourself as possible about who you are and who your ex is. And focusing on your ex as a cockroach is not in your best interest. And here's why, as funny as it seems. The reason it's not going to help you is that the opposite of love is not hate. So we often think you fall madly in love with someone, and the opposite of that is that you hate them, you despise them. The opposite of love is indifference. It is coming to a place in your life where this person who you really once cared about, who drove your behavior, who you wanted to be with, who you craved, you confront in all of the brutal, honest truth of who they are and how it ended, and you have no reaction at all. And at some point in your life, you might even look back on those relationships and smile, because you will realize that it taught you something profoundly important about yourself. Those moments where you can look back with great gratitude and say, this really sucked. I don't ever want to go through it again. I hope I never do. And I probably never would have learned these things about myself had I not lived through this. That's the goal, to use it as a resiliency learning process. So I can say just a couple of things about love addiction. This book is on love addiction and breakups. What is love addiction? A lot of people will look at me and I'll say the word addictive behavior or addiction, and they'll say, well, love doesn't really come to mind when I think of addiction. I might think of drugs, alcohol, sex, chocolate, right? But love, why would we talk about love as an addictive process? Well, there is a large body of neurobiological research that is emerging right now that suggests that the actual experience of falling in love is biologically and evolutionarily meant to make you addicted to your mate. So when you think about falling in love, for any of you who have been in love to this point, and any of you who haven't yet, you can just prepare yourselves because it's probably going to happen. From a biological perspective, your whole entire being in our species is driving us to find a mate that we become infatuated with, that we crave, that we want to touch, that we want to be with at all times and not share with another human being, so that we will at some point have sex, make babies, and ensure that we want to be together at least long enough that our child survives. And so the very natural process of falling in love is designed to be an addictive one in your body. The reason we don't think of love as addictive is because if you fall in love with someone and it's going well, it's one of the most magical experiences you're going to have in your life. It is a profoundly positive experience for most people. The problem is that when you fall in love with someone who isn't healthy for you or doesn't want to be with you, it can throw you into a cycle of addictive heartache that keeps you attached to someone who is no longer in your life. And that is why the book is written from an addictive framework. So oftentimes when we think about tools, when I think about people who have fallen madly in love, and even the language we use, madly in love, you're head over heels, you have lost your mind, you are just infatuated with someone. When we think about breaking up from that experience, when you fall in love and then you break up, the symptoms of a love-addicted breakup are miserable. You stay hyper-focused on your now ex as if you need them to survive. You're obsessively thinking about them. What are they doing? Who are they with? Who are they sleeping with? Where are they? Why did we break up? Convince me it was the right choice. Convince me we can't make this work. You have cravings to know what they're doing and to contact them. People find themselves driving by their house, looking for them online, checking their phone compulsively, trying to see who they're with now. You will find impulsive behaviors where you're acting in ways that really don't make sense if you pause and think about the consequences. Teens and young adults are great at this because their brains aren't fully formed yet, and so they're not very good at thinking through the long-term effects of their choices. And at the end of the day, there's a tremendous amount of emotional pain and distress. People are very highly emotionally reactive. They feel profound sadness. They feel profound anxiety, sometimes anger. And so this book takes a cognitive behavioral approach to each of those core symptoms and teaches people tools that I would use with you if you were sitting with me in therapy to combat your symptoms and help you become empowered again so that you feel confident in your own skin and can use the tools to move on from this breakup. I often describe the healing process as like 3 phases. It's as if you're coming in to an ER with a cut. The first phase, if you are my patient and you're coming in to see me, the first phase is, I gotta stop the bleeding. How bad is it? Where is it? And where can we put on the Band-Aids? I'm gonna give you tools to try to help yourself in the moment with the symptoms that are most upsetting to you. Then, once we stop the bleeding, now we have to figure out how you got cut in the first place. Where's the wound? How did it happen? How did you contribute to getting it? That's a deeper dive into your own belief system and what you learned about romantic love starting in very early childhood and leading up until now. One thing that I'll say to any of you is that the areas in which you are most insecure or uncomfortable are the areas in which you will lie to yourself the most. And they will emerge in your romantic relationships. And finally, once we've tried to figure out why you're attracted to certain people, whether they're healthy for you or not, what you need to shift about your belief system, we can move into what is next in your life. Who are you now? What do you care about? Let's reevaluate your values, your core sense of self, what you want moving forward in your life. So you still have a cut and we've figured out how to heal it, but there's always gonna be a scar. I am never gonna be able to remove the past, but I can help you see it differently. I can help you shift your perspective so that the scar is no longer so painful and that you can see it as a process of healing that told you something about yourself along the way. So that is really the crux of this book. CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy, is looking at how your thinking patterns relate to your emotional experiences and your behaviors. So the way that you think will influence the way that you feel and want to act. For example, if you go through a breakup, it's really common for people to think, I'm never going to get over this. I'm never going to find anyone as great as my ex. Well, how do you think you're going to feel if you think that? You're probably going to feel kind of sad, pretty down. And how are you going to want to act? Well, you might not want to get out of bed in the morning. You might be very angry. And so if we can shift your thinking patterns, your behaviors, and your emotional experiences, we can actually shift all of your symptoms. And that's what this is about. So I am happy to take any questions that any of you might have. I know some of you, I don't know all of you. I want to just be sure you all know that research suggests that pretty much every single adult human is going to have their heart broken at some point in their life. You are not alone. You are not going crazy if that's happened to you. And you're also very likely to break someone else's heart. So don't forget about the other side of the coin. There are probably just as many people coming to see me because they're trying to get over you as you are trying to move forward. And so my kind of last comment to everyone is see people and breakups with compassion, with empathy, with love, with an appreciation of who each of you is as an individual. Do not let yourself stay mired in the bitterness. Do not let a breakup break you and make you into a hateful, angry human being. It will hurt you, it will hurt everyone around you, and it is not healthy for us as a community to think that way. So your ex in the end may or may not be a cockroach. I mean, when you really see them, it's possible that they have some cockroach features. But the goal is eventually you will stop focusing on them and you will shift the mirror to yourself. And at some point, whatever they do or don't do moving forward will become less relevant. I hope that was helpful. Michael, do you have any additional things you want me to say?
I'm really curious about your practice in your life. It's how you learned to focus, making your life's work on addictive behaviors and where that came from.
So my research specialty is eating disorders and body image. And one thing that you see in a lot of addictive behaviors, whether it's eating or substance use or sex, is that they have similar features. And it's only since 2013, with the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, the DSM-5, that we even diagnose behavioral addictions. In general, we use the term to talk about substance use. But the reality is that if I were a betting human, which I very much am, I would bet a lot of money that in future versions of our diagnostic system, you will see a huge influx of behavioral addictions. And it will probably include gaming, online gaming. It will include gambling. Gambling disorder is actually our only diagnosable mental illness that's associated with behavior right now. There's a good chance that it will include sex, and at some point it will probably include romantic love and breakups as well.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah. Does anybody have a question? This is a great time.
Yes.
Are you still taking new clients? Do you work with people?
I do, but I am not taking any patients right now. I love working with people, and I am so busy that I am not. But if you are looking for someone, I can certainly make recommendations. I'm relatively new to town, so I don't know the psych community here as well as I hope to over time. But I'll definitely look for people who I know have really solid training. Yes.
Do you have a time frame for how long you think it takes someone to get over someone?
Oh
Do you have
gosh.
a goal?
A goal. It so depends on so many factors. You know, one thing that I will say for any of you who have been in love, if you think back to your first romantic experience, the first person you fell in love with, that is a really rough breakup for a lot of people. It is a really rough breakup for adolescents and young adults, particularly college-age individuals. You see a huge influx of college students coming for therapy because of romantic breakups. If it's been a long relationship, you've been married, you're going through a divorce perhaps, you have more time, you have finances that are intertwined, you have children potentially, you have an association with a lifestyle and an identity that's intertwined with another human, that oftentimes takes a lot longer to heal and overcome. One side comment I will make about divorce and anyone who's experiencing this as divorce is that one thing I see that manifests differently in people who are going through divorce is that the addictive nature of the love oftentimes focuses on anger and resentment over expectations that were broken, over getting into a relationship that they thought was based on certain assumptions about who each of you were, and that journey of becoming really honest with yourself about who your ex is, about who you are, and about how you're going to navigate that often takes longer because there's so much unpacking to do for yourself and so much personal exploration of reforming your identity without this person that you may have spent a lot of time with. Did you have a question?
Actually, yeah. I was just wondering, is this, what you're talking about, these processes, are they isolated just to romantic love, or are you seeing it effective with like other problematic relationships?
That is such a great question. So she asked, is it just specific to romantic love? No, is really the answer. And really the way that we're conceptualizing any behavioral addiction is the way that it presents clinically. So it's obsessive, it's hyper-focused, it's cravings, it's wanting to engage in a behavior or with a person in a way that makes it very hard for you to stop even when you intellectually want to. That is kind of a core feature of any kind of addiction. And so you'll hear people say, we are broken up. I don't even like you. I don't even want anything to do with you. Why am I still thinking about you all the time? Why do I want to call you? Why am I checking my phone to see if you texted me? It doesn't make any sense. And it's because you're activating a very old part of your brain in the dopaminergic reward center, which is what we would call it technically, that is associated with survival. And the prefrontal cortex, which is at the front, which is our executive functioning, is subdued when you're in any kind of addictive behavior pattern. So, for example, sometimes if you have a best friend and you go through a breakup, you can see similar patterns that look addictive, where you miss them and you want to understand what happened and you want to know who they're hanging out with now and you want to know if they still like you or why you're not close anymore. And so it can manifest in other relationships. There's also some evidence that when you have a baby, particularly as the mother, that you are biologically predisposed to feel addicted to your child to ensure their survival. That's a side topic, but yeah. Any other questions?
Here's your chance.
There's no pressure either. Yes.
The word indifference, what's that mean to you in this case?
It means that your ex no longer has any power over you. It means that what they do or don't do, whether they're a cockroach or a singing iguana, is irrelevant to your life. And that you can look at them and see what they're doing and see who they're dating and see their life and smile and say, good luck to you. I wish you the best. You're over there, I'll be over here. That's what it means. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very much.
Awesome. Yes.
Are you seeing any differences in gender? Like more men or more women suffering from love addiction?
Yeah, that's a good question too. I think there is some emerging research that women struggle more after a breakup emotionally, but there are a lot of nuances to that. It is also highly effective by whether you did the breaking up or you were the person who was left, which is probably more powerful than gender. Mm-hmm.
Are there any other questions?
Any advice for our young ones?
Yeah.
Young ones, I mean, I am so excited to see these young ones here. Yes, I have lots of advice for the young ones, but let's start with what I want you to always remember, all of you, is that your value is exactly the same whether you're in a relationship or not. And that no matter what happens to you in life, whether you're in love with someone who doesn't want you, or someone's teasing you, or you're being bullied online, or whatever it is, it actually doesn't reflect who you are at all. The way people treat you is a reflection of who they are. And so the more you can build up your self-esteem and your resiliency factors is what we call them in psychology, the more easily you will be able to traverse all of the adversity that you're gonna face in your life. You're going to have difficult experiences. Life is really hard sometimes. And so what I wanna do is arm you with as much empowerment and feel good self-esteem that nothing can break you.
Wow.
Yes.
So for those who'd like to continue the discussion and
Yes.
share experience and support each other,
Yes.
do you have a social media platform or any other platform you would recommend?
I literally just started a TikTok channel, which is an interesting experience for me because I am not huge on social media, but you are welcome to follow it. It is just educational and informational, where I give you little tips or tidbits about things that you can do to help yourself. I also have Instagram, but since this is also the local community, I would be more than happy to also have some sort of discussion at some point with people, or do another talk for certain ages, maybe, if that would be helpful.
Is there anything you wanted to add before we sign books?
I'm just very grateful to be here and for all of you for coming. I hope you found some tidbit of this useful. I also think that whether you're struggling with a breakup now or not, you probably know a lot of people who are or who will be. And so having just some of those core solid skills and being open to talk about addictive behavior in general, addictions in general, there's a large amount of stigma actually around the term addiction. There is historically a lot of controversy over the term addiction because it has often been associated with a moral failure, actually, where people are sort of blamed for being weak or for not being able to control their choices. And the more we understand the neurobiology of addictive behavior, the more it's clear that that actually isn't what's happening. It is not a moral failure. It is not that you did something wrong or something is bad with you. You are struggling with a very biologically based set of symptoms that are influenced by your lived life experiences and your personality and a whole host of other things. So the more we can welcome those conversations, the better.
Dr. Warren, thank you very much for joining us
Thank
tonight.
you.